Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Unapologetically Wild with me, Katie Sonntag. Now, we've had a week off, and the reason for that is what I'll be talking today in the podcast about. So, today I'm going to go into boundaries, I'm going to go into transitions, mainly around the house, and just a little bit about what's been going on and what I have learnt over the last couple of weeks. And I think this is really important, especially when we're going through an eclipse period where, you know, it's really letting us look at the old, how we're going to migrate and look at moving into the new. What does that mean? What needs to crumble? What needs to break? What needs to be looked at? What needs to finish and end? And it was a real beautiful thing because I moved into a house, a number 9 house, which, if you know numerology, is endings and beginnings, right? It's about bringing things to an end so we can start a new beginning. So I really want to get into today and tell you all about this journey that I've had over the last couple of weeks and how it has shaped me into the next phase of my life and why it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. And of course, in hindsight, that's when we realize all these things, right? So as you would have known, I was moving house and this was a journey, right? So from coming through a receivership of the fact of they were packing the house for me, taking it all, moving it, bringing it to a new house, which happens every time we move, right? So when you're in defense, you have them pack, move, do all the things. Apart from you pack, obviously, your clothes and stuff like that, and toiletries and things. So during this time when they're packing my house, I'd never actually had them pack it and not move it in the same day. Anyway, I hadn't even realized that that's what I had agreed to, which was totally fine and actually was good because then we got to sleep in that bed one more night and we didn't have to go stay with anyone else except for one night. So it was perfect in the end. And of course it worked out that way because I had asked for it, but not really realized what I'd asked for. But the universe knew what I needed. So the first day I'm sitting there, I'm in receivership. I've packed all my boxes, right? Well, I thought I had. The next day I realized I found some extras, but I had thought I'd packed all my boxes. So I'm sitting on the couch with Pipe by keeping her calm, right? Because obviously when you're upheaval and moving, animals feel that. So do you. The stress, like everything that was leading into it was just like, oh my gosh, getting this all sorted, right? And you know that when you move, it's one of the 3 big stresses that humans go through. And so it was just like all this energy, right? And then I was sitting there just in receivership while they were packing and asking me like what I wanted packed, what I didn't, if I wanted to use the microwave the next, like that night for dinner or all the things, which was really, really helpful. And if they could pack my altar, if that was okay to touch it. And they were actually really respectful and really lovely about packing everything. And so it got to lunchtime on that day and I'm like, okay, they're over there going to lunch. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, I'm really hungry. I'm going to go up the street and get a sandwich. I'm going to take Piper for a walk. And as I'm leaving the house, I go to shut the door and somehow leave my pointer finger on my left hand behind. And it gets smashed into the door. And I am like, holy crap, this is so painful. But I'm like, okay, put Piper back in the house, like race up the street. It's like bleeding like crazy. And I'm just like, get to a Band-Aid, right? Because I think I'm like, just get it covered, stop it bleeding. We're good, move on, right? So I get up there and I show this lady and I ask her for a Band-Aid in the chemist. And she's like, oh my God, what the fuck have you done? I was like, oh, I just did it. She's like, oh my gosh. Anyway, we put the Band-Aid on and I'm like, oh, it's fine for now, right? And I'm so grateful one of my friends actually came and properly like wiped it and did all the things for me, right, later that day because she was like, oh my gosh, what have you done? And I messaged her. And I'm so grateful for the beautiful friends and the support that I've had during this move, realizing how much I'm loved and supported not only just by my family, but my friends, right? Anyway, it was so beautiful. So then the next day they come, they're packing the stuff and then they take it with them, right? And I'm like, oh, finally the house is clear so we can start cleaning. And Piper and I stay at another friend's house, bless. And Piper and, her dog are besties. So they were just hanging out, having the best time ever, which was amazing, right? All these little things that I was supported in takes that stress off because, in a move, there's so many moving parts, of course, right? So it was really beautiful to have that on it. And anyway, and then what happened was, had all of that, then moved down to Newcastle. So we get in the car and we're waiting for the arrival of everything in Newcastle after we've done a massive clean, right? So we do a massive clean, it's like 10 hours of a day, and then, make our way to Newcastle the next day. And so making our way to Newcastle, and I get here and I'm like, okay, yay, this house is going to be amazing. I love the feel. It's got a beautiful back deck and I feel at peace when I'm outside. It's tranquil, big yard for Piper to play in. It's amazing. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. This is so cool. A little bit smaller than my other house, which I'm now trying to work out, but beautiful, right? Perfect for the next stage. Of course, it was the new foundation for the next stage and has a beautiful little rumpus room downstairs, which I can't wait to run events at, right? So anyway, moving all that aside, I was like, okay, cool. What we're going to do is, sort life out. And I thought there was going to be, originally there was a boundary fence here. And then it was taken down because it's pretty old and pretty ratty. And my dad had fixed it up a bit so that pipe wouldn't go through. But they were taking it down to rebuild it. And I was like, yes. And hopefully it happens before we get there. It was meant to happen the Wednesday before we got there on the Friday, but it didn't happen. And so we had no boundary fence. So I couldn't leave Piper in the yard. And I was like, oh. So when we had to keep going, we went back to Sydney to do the cleaning, again with my dad as well. We had to find a friend who I could, or someone to doggy mind sit. So I ended up giving Piper to a family friend. I paid her to mind my dog, right? And because I was like, can you please? I would really appreciate it. And she was amazing. So grateful that I had the ability to find someone and also, give them money to pay them to look after Piper. And so that was amazing. We went up, we did the clean. Oh, we were so proud. This house looked epic, right? Outside, inside, fucking crushed it. Filled in all the holes. I was like, yes. I was like, can't wait to come back Monday, give them the keys, double check that everything's all good after I'd booked an inspection. And normally when you in army, you don't have the ability to go back and look at a house unless you choose to, of course. But you normally get an email and then you kind of go back and forth, right? And so I went up with the keys and I originally planned to meet with a certain agent who's seen the house or manages the house. And all of a sudden they weren't there. And there was this another agent there who'd never seen the house before. And I was like, oh, it's so frustrating because she can't really tell me because she didn't bring the photos and all these things, right? Which is all quite convenient. And I didn't have them, so I couldn't really show them to her. And I was like, shit, this is so annoying because I was like, well, if there's any cleaning, she'll tell me. And she's like, oh, it looks really clean, looks really good, should be fine. Just going to check on a few things. I'm driving home. This is 2.5 hours to get there, 5-hour round trip, right? So I'm like, there better not be any fucking cleaning. Do you know what I mean? I've done a full trip for this. And I get back home and I get an email. And these emails are dreaded. Anyone who's moved and dealt with real estate, it is honestly the worst thing in the world. I've only ever had one real estate where I've had a really good experience. And they're in Sydney actually. And because they were family run and family owned and it was incredible, right? It was when I was in Tempe and they're the only ones I've ever had a really good experience with, so far. And this one I'm in now, at this point, looks really good. So never know. This could be my second really great real estate. Anyway, so I was like, okay, put grass on I'd filled the holes, but I hadn't put grass on top because I thought it's going to die. Unless they water it, it's going to die. Anyway, they just wanted grass on top. I was like, okay, not ideal. Then they wanted me to wipe the pergola outside from some insects that had made marks on the top of as you walk, you're outside the house, walking towards the front door, up above on the roof. And I was like, absolutely not. And so I was like, you've got to be kidding. There are wasps around here. There are so many different insects that nobody dealt with. I sprayed all of them, did all the things right, looked it up, asked them how I deal with it. And I'm like, fucking, my new thing is spraying wasps and all these insects that are everywhere that could have made those marks any time in my tenancy, right? And also not my problem. Also don't have to look after it. Learned a lot from the Tenancy Act. So anyone has any questions, I learned a lot of things. And then, and I was like, that's ridiculous. And then they were like a blind, which I was like, there were some marks that were on there that weren't originally on there. And I was like, that's fine. I'm more than happy to come and try and clean it. And then a wall. And this wall had no damage. There was a tiny little bit of paint that had come off because the chip rock, there were 2 sheets and the chip rock in between. And what happened is they hadn't actually either cleaned or there was dirt or they hadn't actually properly, before they'd painted, they hadn't actually properly, I don't even know how to say it. I'm no builder, but I did get a builder to check on it for me because I was like, they're taking me for a ride. They hadn't actually like either cleaned it, there was dirt or whatever. So then the paint came off. And they're trying to tell me that my dining chair made the mark, all of this shit, right? Like it's absolute bullshit. Anyway, I'm like, what the actual fuck? There's no way. So we went back up there. We did the grass, left the ceiling, which they didn't even notice when they came back to look at it, with a different agent. And then was like, okay, so the blind, we tried to clean it. We fucked it. I was like, I'll pay for a new blind. Totally fine, right? The wall was crap. And I was like, I'm not paying for this wall, right? No fucking way. And so this property guy, honestly, don't ever get a property, if you can possibly help it, with Benchmark National. Honestly, horrendous. Like, this guy just kept going back and forth and kept saying the same thing. I honestly put in from the very start that I was going to pay for that blind, and he just kept battering me about paying for the wall. And I said clearly at the very start that I was not paying for the wall because it was not my thing, because I'd even got a builder to have a look at it to tell me what was going on, and I'd explained it multiple times. This guy just kept coming back with the same shit. And I had an air conditioner that didn't work for 3 months that they never fixed. And they couldn't provide any evidence of that. They also couldn't provide any evidence of the fact that they had apparently painted the wall before I moved in. Bullshit. Looks exact same as every other wall that hadn't been painted. And I was like, can you provide evidence? No, they can't. They don't know the color of the wall. Apparently the owner painted it. Every excuse you can think of under the sun, this guy, I reckon he has a fucking bookload of them, right? And this is horrible. Like, honestly, I was a great tenant to the point where, like, that actually, when I looked up the Tenancy Act, the aircon, so you can ask for, if you don't know this, go look up Tenancy Act, you can actually ask for reduced rent over the period of the fact of something's not working. Now, I didn't because I wasn't all over this, and this is why you learn these things, right? This is why you go through things in life. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this wall, this aircon that hasn't worked, it still didn't work, to the point where when we went up there to fix or look at and fix the lawn and all the things, we asked one of the agents who was there showing the house to turn on the air conditioner, and it still didn't work. But because all this isn't in writing, they get away with it, right? And this was horrendous. Like, I'm dealing with this guy for over 2 weeks. Finally, I decided to ring Fair Trading, which I probably should have done a lot earlier, right? Let's be real here. And I rang them today, right, of all days. And I'll tell you what happens with that in a moment. But before we get there, that's what I've been dealing with the last couple of weeks. So that has meant that that's taken a bit of energy, right? Like, emailing them back and forth has been a journey. And obviously just receiving the same stuff and them ignoring all the things they had said. They said that they had maintenance reports, the agents that I saw on the ground, but then he kept claiming that he wouldn't give them to me. He didn't have to, even though he couldn't actually explain anything to do with the wall. And he actually couldn't, so many things with the aircon, he couldn't tell me if they actually got it repaired, because they didn't, right? They came out once to check it, and the guy told me that they put it in to get repaired. And so did one of the agents. He also told me that he saw that invoice come through saying that it needs a new one or to be repaired, and nothing got done. So anyway, but of course, because none of this is in writing, you can't hold them to it. Learned a lot. So anyway, all of that's happening. While this side, there's a fence, and there's no fence, right? So I'm emailing in a really nice way because let's be honest, the fence benefits me too, right? Because the old fence was all rickety and horrible. This is a brand new collarbone fence. So I'm like, please keep me updated. How long is it going to take? You know, I had to put Piper in the 3 times I went to Sydney to doggy daycare. So I sent them the invoices and just said, hey, like, I appreciate this. I can work from home on the other day. So it actually kind of worked out really well, of course, that I can work from home. Super grateful for that. And but it was like taking her outside every time she needed to pee and having to monitor her. And I was like, oh my gosh, for a dog that like is used to free roam her own life. And for me, it meant that I didn't go out, right? Because I was like, oh, I can't leave her for a certain period of time. It's not fair to leave her cooped up in a house. And like, you know, I don't like have pee pads. I'm not going to go buy pee pads. You know what I mean? Like it just was really inconvenient and really stressful because like even working from home, if like I had to go out and make sure she, you know, went to the bathroom, all the things, and at nighttime. And the first few nights we were here, she was unwell. So then she was out there all the time. We're up every hour. This was before I went to Sydney on the first run. And I was like, oh my gosh, the eclipse season's really getting us. I was very tired. And I remember the first full sleep I had here was epic, right? And so grateful for that day. I remember just being like, this is why sleep is so important because it honestly, like, I didn't realize how stressed I was and how exhausted I was until I had that epic sleep. And so whilst looking up all these things, while sending emails to this real estate, asking them on progress of the fence, which then I later found out, the guy doing the fence, he had lost a worker who'd worked with him for ages. He just left, and then the neighbor felt really bad because it's their fence. They're doing their whole house, and I was like, it didn't need to cause an issue. I just genuinely need a fence because I'm paying for a house with a secure yard, and I don't have a secure yard. I can't go out and do whatever I want when I have a dog here that doesn't have a space to do this. So it taught me from the other house to also honor the fact that I can obviously do this with grace, right? Like I said, respectful emails asking and putting in boundaries. Now, do we laugh that this is a boundary fence? We do not, right? It is, of course, very aligned. All of this was about me actually stepping in because guess what I wanted to do? Guess what my default was to avoid? And I know that's my default. Like I am very hyper aware. Doesn't mean it doesn't still get me, right? There were so many times where I said to my mum, I just can't deal. I don't want to pay them for it because I know it's wrong and I did not fuck up that wall, but I'm sick of fighting. And so I want to talk about this because this has happened a lot. Like over my career, I definitely have paid money for things that I never did, but real estates just keep, hounding you and making you feel like almost that you have no rights. And it's just easier sometimes to just go with the status quo. Like for this fence, I could have easily, just paid for my own doggy daycare and then never told them about it. But I was like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like you want me to pay rent for a fully secure fence. It's a contract. It's like a business contract. If I write a contract to someone and we sign it, if I don't meet my side of that agreement, I pay them back or I forfeit it or whatever, right? I don't take their money or whatever that is, right? Because it's a contract that you sign. The lease agreement is a contract. And I honestly had to start looking at it and being like, this is not personal because it's actually not personal, although it's causing me a lot of stress to have to be out with my dog every time she wants to go outside, which is a lot. But it's not personal. It's generally a contract that you sign. And if you aren't getting what you need in that contract or then it's not being met, the criteria of the contract is not being met, then you are within your right to, if you need to make extra expenses or if it's causing you extra stress or if there's different things that are happening due to that not being met, you are able and you are worthy to ask for what you need. Big lesson. Big boundary, right? Boundary fence, boundary. So why I want to say how important this is because it's really easy to not put a boundary in and not have people honor it. really easy. And it's easy to not say what you need and honor what you need, right? Sometimes it's easier to go with the flow. And when I used to live here, when I was younger, that's what I did all the time. That's my default. And I'm choosing in this new part of my life to not do that. And let me tell you what the outcome of that was. Today I rang Fair Trading and I told them all about it. And they were like, and some of you may know this, but I didn't really think about it, right? Like through the stress of all the move and everything and the shaking up of the old ground and then the coming to the new and it's still being shaky everywhere. They were like, go in and request your full bond. And I was like, oh, don't know why I haven't done that earlier. And just say that you don't owe them any money. So I did. I went in, I requested my full bond today. While she was on the phone, I was with her. And then she's like, you can send an email and you can talk about the air conditioning because against the act, it needs to be repaired within 14 days. It's actually an urgent repair, especially if it's during the time of winter, summer. And if they don't repair the system, then you can request either less rent or in the case of it now being leaving, you can claim money to be given to you. I forget how she put it. But anyway, you can claim to have money given to you for the fact that during that time you were paying full rent and you actually weren't receiving everything in the house, right? Which is the same with the fence, right? The contract. You signed a contract where air conditioning was a part of it and you didn't receive air conditioning or heating, right? And it's really funny because it's still not fixed. So I actually feel really bad for the next tenants because I hope that they don't get stuck with the same thing. And if I ever see them in person or if anyone knows who's moving into my old house in Hammondville, please tell them that they need to check that aircon and send 1,000 emails about it because it needs to get fixed and they're avoiding it. And they actually put it in the, which I brought up, that they actually still had it in the, what do you call it when they, oh my gosh, my brain's gone to mush. When they were actually leasing the house, they put up that there was air conditioning. And I was like, that's bullshit because it's not working. Anywho, I decided that it wasn't really worth a fight for that because in the end, this has been a bigger fight than anything. But I did put it in my email and I've got a very long email trail of them avoiding giving me all the things and not being able to explain it and then trying to pretend that the call out fee for the original guy that came and saw the system was when they fixed it, which he didn't touch it. So anyway, and I would love to see that invoice, but of course they won't show me that invoice because what do people do when they're hiding stuff? They don't show you shit. So anyway, I honestly don't go with them ever. They're horrible. Or send 1,000 emails all the time and then just keep on top of everything and know the act. Trust me, I'm learning that. And so anyway, today I rang them and they're like bringing up the same part of the act which I had read with my mum and we knew that that was to do with the 14 days and the damage and repairs of things, right? And then there was the wall, right, which I'd talked to a builder and I'd already made very clear that I wasn't taking responsibility for the wall. And they kept saying they were taking it to the owner, but there's no bloody way they were taking it to the owner. Or if they were, the owner is just as stubborn as that guy, which I don't think is true. And so, but I guess I don't really know. And I never really will. And I actually don't care. Somebody just didn't want me to pay for some wall to get it painted and to fix the damage that was not there. So anyway, finally today, after talking to her, I wrote an email saying, I've been requesting a quote and an invoice on every email, which I actually had for the blind, but they had refused to send them to me because they wanted me to add the wall to it, right? He just never sent me one. On every email, I had asked for one specifically. I'd said, please send me an invoice, please send me an invoice, please send me an invoice. I got nothing. And so, because he just kept pushing the wall. Anyway, after I'd put in the bond thing and then I'd said, because he then sent me an email because he received it, right? Saying that I had requested the bond back. Anyway, and then I said, send me a copy of the invoice for the blind, which I have always taken responsibility for, and I will not take responsibility for the wall. Now, take this into perspective. You builders out there, if there's anyone or ladies who are into this, right? They wanted $100 to paint a full wall and to fix a patch of something that was broken that was actually not broken. And I was like, pretty crappy repair job. If you're going to actually buy the paint, I'm pretty sure it costs more than $100. So I'm curious of where this money's actually going to go and how often they have done this to tenants before me. And it's funny because as soon as they sent that through and they said, pay the $200 and then the owner's going to excuse the wall, because it would have cost them more to go to, I think it's the tribunal. Because I was like, let's go to the tribunal. I'll pay $60 to go to the tribunal, because he's like, oh, it's $60. And I'm like, absolutely, it's cheaper than $100 plus GST that you keep telling me you're going to add on top. And so it was wild. So then, anyway, they were like, oh, we're going to drop the wall. And I was like, oh, and later found out that owners, if they're going to pay the bloody real estate to go to tribunal, it costs them like almost $60, $70 themselves, if not more, depending on where you are, depending on your contract. So I laughed because I was like, you're going to pay as much money as I would have for that wall that I didn't do due to a shitty patch job. And so it was so interesting, and I just had to laugh. And they kept saying all these things about changing stories and all of this about the aircon. And I was like, I'm not going to fight the aircon, although it is illegal and you should fix it. I feel for the next tenant. Like I said, if you know the next tenant, please tell them. And if I ever meet them, I will tell them too. But then, of course, officially my fence got finished today. So in that day, and I am receiving the reimbursement for doggy daycare all in one day. And I was like, isn't it interesting how once we finally stand in our power, once we finally stand up for what is right? Like what is in the contract that we sign with somebody else, which both parties come into equally, when we clean them up, everything starts to fall into place, right? And everything starts to work out and we start to feel better, right? Because obviously a lot of stress off my shoulders, closing of the old chapter, reopening of a new chapter. And it just meant that, oh my gosh, the energy it's moving talking about this is wild. It means that what happens is when you set boundaries in your life, things start to shift. And things start to move. And then they even moved, like in my mum's life, she got offered, an interview for her job, and like different things start to shift, not only in your life, but you make a ripple effect. This is the thing with energy. Once you clean yours up and once you start to align with what's for you and actually stand up for things, because alignment doesn't always mean laying down and doing nothing, right? Because I've done that a lot and didn't really get me very far. It's about aligning with your truth and what you truly know that is right for you. It's not going over the top and asking for things that aren't for you or, being greedy or whatever. It's generally looking at something and being like, what is under this contract? Like, what am I paying for? Because if I'm not getting what I'm paying for, then I get to ask for what I need to make up what I'm paying for. Does that make sense? And if you have to do extra things for the thing that you're paying for, it's like saying that I'm going to buy a slow cooker and it just stops working, but everyone's like, oh, but it's okay because you've got the slow cooker. And I'm like, but it's under warranty and I need a new one. And they're like, oh, no. Get it? Probably a shitty example, but you get it. You got to set boundaries and there's rules in place, right? And not all rules are there to be fucking followed perfectly, right? We know army people, sometimes we follow the rules too well and then that can lead to us not actually honoring ourselves. But it's looking at what's there and honoring you, right? Honoring your truth, honoring your boundaries, honoring what is actually going to serve you and actually standing up for yourself. And it's a really, really big thing. And I'm really proud of myself for doing it because it meant that sending the emails got the fence up, right? Because they ended up doing my side first. Amazing. And then it means that Piper now has a yard. I can leave and be stress free. I now have closed the chapter without letting them get away with me giving them $100 for a war, which who knows what that would have gone to, right? And it means that there are fights worth fighting for. There are also fights that aren't worth fighting for, like the air conditioning, right? Going to tribunal, doing all those things is not really right for me. But, someone else that may be the fight that they actually should go after, right? And everyone gets to find out where that point is and what's right for them. And so why I want to talk about this, I think more importantly, is not only to just give you life of what's happened with the boundaries, with the fence, with what actually serves you, but I want you to look at your own life, and maybe during this period as well, you're having these sort of downloads or feelings of things that might be old, that don't serve you, or might be ways that you've done things before, but there are ways you can fight for yourself. There are ways that you can create boundaries, that you can ask for what you need without being rude about it, right? Because you can do it with grace. Like everything to do with this fence was done with grace, and actually it was really amicable and really beautiful, and everything worked perfectly, right? And the other one, not so great, because obviously I had to learn a lot of really important lessons there. And this is how we grow and develop. If we start to see these experiences as here to help us grow and learn so that we can keep honoring ourselves to each level, then we start to realize that everything that happens to us in life, good or bad, that causes stress, like maybe anxiety, sadness. This morning I hit my head on so I'm going up the stairs. I dropped something, so I could go down the stairs. I dropped something and I picked it up and then I smacked my head. And then I started crying, right? Because I had some held in tears and angst and all these things from everything that had been going on. I actually needed to have a cry. And it was really helpful. It did not help that I had to bang my head to do it, right? Like, let's be real, didn't love that part. And I had sat there and I was like, why did I do this? Like, I had those thoughts of like, why did I give up being in the army and all of these pieces to be here right now, where I'm dealing with the stress of 2 real estates, where I'm dealing with, all of these pieces, and business isn't moving as quickly because I haven't got my house sorted as quickly as I would have liked, right? All of the thoughts, all of the transition, all of the digging up of the shit, right? Because this is the old programming of security, safety, all of these pieces that I've had for the last 13 and a half years. All attached not only to that house, right? That area, because that was where I was still full-time in the army, right? It was where I left full-time army, to a space where I have lived before. So I'm coming back home, if you want to call it that, even though I believe home is wherever you make it. I'm coming back to where I lived, and I was a totally different person at that time. And I've got to navigate that as a totally new person, and also honor myself in what I need and stand up for that with grace. That's what I'm learning. There's lots of ways to do it with love. Plus, be supported and honored with all the incredible people. Like going out to a dance event with my brother the other night was amazing, right? Where it's just an hour, someone made a playlist and everyone's just jamming, and it's all different types of music, and it's actually wild. It was so much fun. So being a part of community, doing new things, coming in as a totally new person, that would not have been something I would have done when I was here before, right? And honoring that, my family's so close, and I'm so grateful for how much they've helped me in this move and supported me in this fight for my rights. And, beautiful friends that, are around. Like it's just a really beautiful thing, but it's also a lot, right? And a lot comes up, with who I am and who I've become and all these pieces. But this is the eclipse, right? It's like relationships with people. It's like, how does that show in your life? Is that good? Is it like serving you? How? What do you need to say? What boundaries do you need to make? What do you need to do to honor you in this new space as this new person? So I want you to really contemplate that as we sort of end eclipse season. There's another one on this weekend. And really take stock of the last 6 months of your life, because it's almost like a reset right now, where it's like take stock, understand what worked, what didn't work, all the things. And then it's like, how do we come back to 0 point and look forward on what we want to create and who we want to be. And it's a really good spot to be in. And this comes in all forms: business, relationship, with self, relationship with others, um, so work, so many pieces, right? So community, like my business is going to look so different in a community than it did in Sydney, right? Because it's just such a different vibe. And so let it kind of crumble, let it fall over, let it be totally different and not how you expected. But let yourself rebuild and let yourself be with what the universe is bringing in, because the universe has brought me in a beautiful neighbor who Piper goes and plays with their 2 dogs and hangs out with their chickens, and I've had beautiful eggs from them, right? Piper's got to go play in their pool. Like, that's a blessing. My beautiful family that are super close, that are so eager and ready to help, right? And hanging out with my brother, doing new things, being a part of a new community, right? And all of this gets to be what you see and what grows with you. And you get to actually allow that to be the case. And it doesn't have to look how you think it will, because it probably won't. So I just want to leave you with that. And I want you to think about the boundaries, the things that are going to honor you, that actually mean that you get to step into your power, honor yourself. And what are you ready to rebuild for the next 6 months? If you come back to 0 point right now, honor everything you've learned, honor everything you've been through. How do you get to start again for the next 6 months of well, I say 6 months into next year. I say into, the time, because obviously we're in September, right? So that's not 6 months till the end of the year. But it will go into January, February, because let's think about it too. We're going into summer. So we're moving spring, summer. Like, these are the beautiful, prosperous months where everything that we have planted will start to bloom and prosper. So that's another beautiful thing, is like, how do you see that moving forward? How do you allow that to move forward into the next season? And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I had the space and the time right now to honor that, to be with all of these pieces so that I could learn these to step me into that next version, right? So what are you going through right now that's actually going to honor you moving forward? And how can you look at it, come back to 0 point and move forward in the next few months, 6 months, whatever, powerfully to honor you, your boundaries, your personal power, your relationships, your support, your connection, your love, your freedom. And how can you be unapologetically you and unapologetically wild? I love you. I will talk to you next week. Have a wonderful day.